Sometimes love doesn't leave, people do. But their scent, their laughter, their shadow remains. This isn't about loss, but about finding strength to live again with love that has no name. The ring on the table. It was a quiet morning in Copenhagen. The sky was pale, and soft light slipped through the kitchen window. On the wooden table, next to a cold cup of coffee, lay a silver ring. Small, simple, and heartbreakingly still. Anna stared at it for a long time. She didn't cry. Not anymore. She just sat there, listening to the sound of the clock ticking, like it was counting the moments of her life that had stopped moving. That ring had once meant forever. Now, it only meant before. She remembered the day Jonas placed it on her finger. It was raining, but they laughed under a tiny umbrella, saying love could survive any storm. Back then, she believed it, but time has a strange way of testing promises. Love, once warm and full of light, had slowly turned into quiet distance, and one morning, he was simply gone, leaving behind his jacket, his mug, and the silence that filled every corner of her heart. Now, Anna looked at the ring again. It was just metal, but also more than that. It was a memory she didn't know how to hold or how to let go. She whispered to herself, "Is this what love becomes when it ends? A story told by objects, not people?" Outside, a soft wind touched the curtains. The world was still moving, even if she wasn't ready to. When love becomes a memory. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. Every sound in the apartment reminded her of him. The soft creak of the floor, the hum of the refrigerator, the quiet sigh of the wind. Each sound used to mean home. Now, it only meant alone. She opened an old photo album. In every picture, Jonas was smiling, that warm, gentle smile that had once made her heart calm like a summer sea. They had built dreams together, a small house near Aarhus, a garden with white tulips, maybe even a little dog one day. But somewhere between someday and soon, life happened. Jonas started working longer hours. Anna started talking less. The dinners became quiet, and the "I love yous" became routine, like brushing teeth before bed. Love didn't break. Suddenly it faded, like a candle that burned too long. One evening, he looked at her and said, "Anna, I don't know who I am anymore." It was the last real sentence between them. After that, their conversations turned into weather reports and shopping lists. And now, sitting by the window, Anna whispered, "How can something that felt so real just become a memory?" Her voice trembled, but she smiled sadly, because deep down, she knew, memories don't die. They simply change shape. They live in the way you still make coffee for two, even when you're alone. They live in the way your heart still turns when you hear their name. Anna closed the album. She wasn't ready to let go, but she was beginning to understand that maybe, letting go doesn't mean forgetting. The quiet goodbye. It didn't happen with shouting. It didn't happen with tears. It happened in silence. The kind of silence that feels heavier than words. One Sunday morning, Jonas packed a small bag. He didn't look angry or sad. He just looked empty. He said, "I need to find myself again." Anna stood there, frozen. She wanted to ask, "Find yourself where?" "You're right here." But her lips couldn't move. Sometimes, the heart knows the answer before the mouth can speak. He placed his wedding ring on the table, right next to her cup of coffee, and left the house. No door slam. No goodbye kiss, just the quiet sound of the door closing. That sound echoed in her chest for days. The first few hours, Anna waited, Maybe he just needed space. Maybe he would come back for dinner. But dinner turned into midnight, and midnight turned into morning. His side of the bed was still untouched. The world outside looked the same. The same blue sky, the same streets, the same people rushing to work. But everything inside her had changed. It was like the world had color, but her heart had turned grayscale. She found his note later that evening. It said, "I love you. But I need to understand who I am when I'm not loving you." Anna read it again and again. Every word felt like a goodbye disguised as a poem. That night, she sat by the table, staring at both rings, his and hers, side by side. Two small circles, two promises, and an emptiness that no words could fill. She whispered, "Maybe love doesn't end with a fight. Maybe it ends when the silence feels too loud to ignore." Outside, the moonlight fell on the table, touching the rings, like a soft goodbye. Days of silence. Days turned into weeks, and the silence stayed. It filled the house like fog, soft, quiet, and everywhere. Anna woke up alone. She made coffee for two, but only one cup was used. She still opened the window every morning, just like Jonas used to do. The breeze touched her face, and for a second, she imagined his voice saying, "Good morning, sunshine." But it was only the wind. At work, people asked polite questions. "Are you okay, Anna?" She smiled and said, "I'm fine." But her smile was made of glass, beautiful, fragile, ready to break. Every evening, she returned to an apartment that didn't feel like home anymore. The radio played softly, but the music sounded like echoes from another life. She cooked simple meals, mostly soup or pasta, but always too much, as if she still expected him to walk through the door. Sometimes, she talked to herself, out loud, just to hear a human voice again. She read English stories slowly, word by word, like learning to breathe. Again, each sentence felt like a small step towards something. She didn't know what in those quiet nights. Anna learned something important. Silence is not empty, that it's full of everything we try not to feel. One evening, she sat by the window with her journal and wrote, "Maybe this silence isn't punishment. Maybe it's a place where I can finally hear my own heart." Outside, the city lights flickered like distant stars. Inside, her heart was learning how to beat again, quietly, gently, and alone. A stranger in the mirror. One morning, Anna looked into the mirror, and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes were tired, her hair messy. But it wasn't just her face. It was something deeper. It was like her soul had forgotten how to smile. She touched the glass and whispered, "Who are you now, without him?" She used to know every part of her life, her routines, her dreams, her plans. Now, everything felt blurry, as if someone had erased the edges of her world. She remembered how Jonas once told her, "Love should help you grow, not make you disappear." But she realized now, she had disappeared a little, every day, not because of him, but because she stopped seeing herself. That morning, she made a small decision. She brushed her hair, she put on her favorite blue sweater, the one she hadn't worn since he left, and for the first time, she smiled. It was small, shy, and almost broken. But it was hers. Later that day, she went for a walk by the sea. The air was cold, and the wind sharp, but she didn't mind. She watched the waves crash against the rocks, and thought, maybe it's okay to fall apart, because every wave that breaks finds its way back to the sea. The mirror would wait for her that night, but maybe next time, she'd recognize herself a little more. The letter she never sent. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. The rain kept tapping against the window, like memories asking to be let in. So, she took out a blank piece of paper, and for the first time in months, she began to write, "Dear Jonas." She started, then paused. Her hand trembled a little. There were too many words she had swallowed, too many tears she had never let fall. She wrote slowly, carefully, as if every sentence might break her heart again. "I miss you," she wrote, "but not the way you think that I miss the version of me who used to laugh beside you, the girl who believed love could fix everything." She stopped, looked at her handwriting, the ink slightly smudged by a tear. Then she continued, "I'm learning that love isn't always about staying. Sometimes, it's about letting go, with kindness, with peace, with gratitude." When she finished, she folded the letter gently, placed it inside an old envelope and wrote no address. She didn't plan to send it, because it wasn't for him that it was for her. For the part of her heart that finally understood that closure doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes, it comes from forgiveness. She placed the letter inside a small wooden box, next to the ring she no longer wore, then whispered softly, "Thank you, for everything, and for nothing." And that night, she slept, not because she forgot him, but because she finally remembered herself. The sea at sunrise. The next morning, Anna woke before the sun. The sky was still gray, the world half asleep. She wrapped herself in a soft scarf and walked down to the beach. The air smelled of salt and something new, like the beginning of a different life. As she reached the shore, the first light of dawn touched the sea. The waves whispered softly, as if greeting her by name. She stood there, barefoot on the cold sand, watching how the water met the land again and again, never holding on, never resisting, just letting go. Beautifully, she smiled. That was the first true smile in a long time. She realized something simple. The sea never asks the waves to stay, and yet it is never empty. Maybe love is the same. Maybe letting go isn't losing someone. It's making space for yourself to grow again. A gentle breeze brushed her hair. She closed her eyes, felt the rhythm of the waves, and whispered, "I'm okay now." For the first time, she didn't feel the weight of what was gone. She felt the quiet power of what remained, and as the sun rose higher, she turned back toward the town, the ringless hand warm in the new light. She didn't know what the day would bring, but she knew one thing for sure. She was ready to begin again. The meaning of letting go. Weeks passed. The leaves in Copenhagen began to turn gold. Anna still walked past the small cafe, still saw the same window where they once sat together. But something inside her had changed. The memories no longer hurt. They felt gentle, like old songs you don't play anymore, but still hum without sadness. She realized that letting go wasn't about forgetting. It was about forgiving, both him and herself. Forgiving herself for holding on too long, for loving too deeply, for thinking that love must last forever to be real. One evening, she found the small ring again in her drawer. She looked at it for a long time. It didn't make her cry this time. It just reminded her that once, she had loved bravely. And that was enough. She placed the ring in a small box, closed it gently, and whispered, "Thank you, for teaching me how to feel." Outside, the city lights shimmered on the water, and for the first time, she didn't wish for anyone to be there, because she finally understood. You don't move on by erasing someone, you move on by remembering who you are without them. She opened the window, felt the cool night air touch her face, and smiled. Her story wasn't ending, that it was only beginning. A story of coming home to herself. That's all for today. I'll make more videos like this in the future. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss them.